Hi, I'm Gary Dumbrell, and this is the first in a series where I'm going to be asking, how do we get child welfare right? I've been trying to answer this question for years, first as a social worker in the field and then as a researcher and academic. In this series, I want to share with you some of the answers I've figured out already and some of the questions I continue to puzzle over. All of these answers are complex, because getting it right for one family in one community may not be getting it right for another family or community. As well, how one worker gets it right with their personality and skill set may be entirely different to how another worker gets it right with their personality and a different skill set. Someone once said to me that child welfare is not rocket science, and they were right. It's much more complex than that. When it comes to rockets, all you need is basic math and you can figure out where the rocket is going. But math doesn't work like that when it comes to human beings. Of course, there's science involved, but it's mixed with a whole lot of art. In this series, we're going to be looking at both. In this first episode, I want to look at where we need to start if we're going to get child welfare right. So if you're ready, let's begin. So where do we start if we're going to get child welfare right? I think we start by listening to the children, youth, families, and communities on the receiving end of child welfare policy and practice. I don't mean just listen to one or two service users. I mean listen to them collectively. I don't mean swoop into town and hold a focus group just so that you can say you consulted and then go away and do what you had in mind from the start. I mean do something deeper, more sustained, more significant, something that taps service users' knowledge and theory. Service users' knowledge is the understanding and insights service users have into the troubles they face and the effectiveness of the policies and social work practice that attempt to address these troubles. Service users' theory is the refinement of such knowledge into theory about the causes of these troubles and the types of policy and practice that will best address them. In this episode, I'm going to explore one form of service users' knowledge that I call the word on the street. The word on the street applies to both policy and practice, but for now, I'm going to just look at the individual practice level. If you're a social worker doing practice, the community you serve knows whether your practice is any good or not, and that knowledge becomes what I call the word on the street. Listening to that word on the street about what you do and how you're doing it is crucial if you're going to get your child welfare practice right. Of course, there'll be people who you serve who never like anything you do no matter how good it is, and others who will never complain about what you do no matter how bad it is. But the community knows itself. The community knows what word to trust and which words to be more suspicious of. So the word on the street that I'm referring to is not one or two good or bad reports about you and your practice, but the general consensus or buzz that develops in a community about your work. What you're looking for in that buzz or word on the street is that when you visit the neighborhood, you leave it a better place than when you arrived. That you bring with you an ability to work through hard issues with people and stick with them through their troubles, and that you can be relied on to keep kids in that neighborhood safe. In short, you're looking for the word on the street to be that if a neighbor has a problem and they get you as a worker, they and their kids are lucky. A few years back, I conducted a research interview with a child protection worker about her practice in a fixed geographic area. And this idea about the word on the street emerged. The interview was video recorded under a McMaster University ethics protocol with the informed consent of the worker and the agreement of her agency. I'm going to play a part of that video to you now. The clip that you're about to see starts with me asking if there's an advantage to working in a specific neighborhood where people get to know you as a worker, so that a word on the street begins to emerge. I'll let the worker explain it from here.
It's a great advantage.
Yeah.
That's what I have worked with several clients in that housing area, and there was this one day I have a 12-hour report that I have to go right away no phone call, because the children were reportedly playing unsupervised outside, and mom wasn't around, and the children were very young. So I went there. I went to the housing area. The children were no longer playing outside. I couldn't find the children. So I went to the house and knocked on the door and tried to meet with the parent and the children. And the mom saw me and said, when I told her I'm from CAS, she said, "I'm not talking to you. I'm not dealing with CAS," and then slammed the door on me. But then her best friend was around at that time, and her best friend came out of the door. Came out as soon as she slammed the door. She came out. She said, "That's okay. I'll talk to her." And then I went back to the office, and then this client called me back and apologized. "Oh, I'm so sorry that I freaked out on you. My best friend told me that you were a very good worker when her file was open with you, and no, you can come back now and meet with me." So I get to go back right away and meet with the client. So this is what I feel is very important, that you work with your client and you give them and they feel that they were understood, and they feel that you were genuinely supportive of them, and they felt heard, and as a result they have a positive experience working with CAS. So when a file reopened, either with themselves or with their friend, the word will go around, and the word that's around in that co-op is, if you get Juliana, you're lucky.
So thanks to Juliana, the worker, for agreeing that we can share this video. I also want to clarify that in this video, the worker speaks of going out to engage with the mom because she knew that the mother was the sole caregiver already. So this isn't a case of the worker assuming that when it comes to children, only the mom is responsible, or a worker thinking only in a nuclear family paradigm and not being open to the possibility that grandparents, aunties, uncles, and neighbors are not also sharing the parenting and supervision of children. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about this video, and also keep that in mind in your own practice. Don't fall into that trap in the way you do your work. But back to the word on the street and why we need to listen to it. What is the word on the street about your practice? Or if you're a student and you're not in practice yet, what will the word on the street be about how you do this work? You need to tap that knowledge because it's too valuable to be ignored. I said this earlier, but I'll repeat it here, that the word on the street doesn't just refer to one or two service users thinking you're either wonderful or awful. The word on the street is a larger community consensus about the ways you're doing your work. Listening to the word on the street about your practice is only one of the ways we need to tap service users' knowledge and theory in getting child welfare right. We will be coming back to additional ways in future episodes. We will also be coming back to more interviews with Juliana, because in this interview, Juliana already gives clues about how she's getting her practice right. So we'll return to this and other interviews later to take a closer look at those clues. But for now, that's it for this episode. So it's goodbye from me, and I will see you next time.